Here we go. We're live. Let's hear that intro, man. Cue the intro.
Sorcery!
Oh man, that was like peak aggression right there. That was like live event passion.
You're gonna get complaints. I'm just gonna tell you. Like whole
If you-
comic feeds now, like he's gonna stop doing that. So
No, man, that's how we hear it in. I think you did Baltimore broadcasting, and then like the Planet Sorcery Con was you were just there to judge, but all of a sudden I saw you were on the mic announcing events. Actually, I don't even know if they gave you a microphone. That's kind of dangerous. You were just shouting out the start of tournament scene.
yeah, no. Actually, they did give me a mic, and they were like, "But you can't do that on the mic." So,
Turn it down to minimal
yeah.
decibels. Nice. All right, so there's a lot of action going on here recently. Your video content's really good, by the way. Wanted to compliment you. I think you're up to like still only like 500. We got to get you up to $1,000 so you can make a few pennies every few months.
Yeah. I'm not worried about it. It's a good time. So
Yeah. But yeah, it's growing and like the content's good. I think people like it because it's I think someone was calling you a doomer or something like that, which is hilarious. A boomer that's a doomer. But I don't know. I think that's just a stigma that people get when they, they're honest about what's going on. Nothing's ever like perfect. So there's ups and downs, ebbs and flows. And actually on that point, I think part of it is just that I guess the first thing I would say is that Sorcery is unlike many other projects in tons of ways. And it's very clear that Eric does whatever he wants to. For example, people are upset about the interview with Kevmo recently on, what is it, All Things Contested Realm podcast.
yeah.
Give him a
Episode
shout out there.
25. Yep.
So you did a video, you posted it in the Sorcery community group, and Eric said he's printing 1,000 boxes for every like the video gets.
Yeah.
So he trolls a little bit, and it gets people riled. Like some people understand his humor, other people are like, "Oh, what the hell? We're upset about this. How can you make light of this?" Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what the gist is, as I understand, well, actually, there's a couple things going on. First, there was the Rudy sale last week. And the pricing was a little interesting because there was some aggressive pricing on bulk orders. And people are saying, like, where did you get that much supply for one? Which is whatever. You can buy supply from anywhere. I don't know that that's really relevant. But just the pricing, I guess. And then, like, immediately after that sale, there was some price regression. Although it did coincide with people are starting to get actual Arthurian Legends Wave 2 inventory from distribution. So there's always a dip as supply increases. It's just that it dipped well below map, I guess. MSRP's at what, 129? Is it 129?
Yeah, 129 MSRP, and we had boxes tonight at 95 shipped plus tax.
Yeah, so on TCG Player, I mean, people don't follow map policy on TCG Player. They just undercut each other, and it's like a race to the bottom for people that, like, I think, like, who goes there in mass quantity are stores that don't have, like, an LGS presence and or... I think what happens, honestly, is, like, some of these stores are bullied into taking the inventory from the distributor. So what happened was, like, Rudy had his sale Friday, and then stores are just getting their supply this week, and it's... Some of them, like, they can't say no, The price was, like... People were uncertain about Wave 2. Wave 1 was, like, fairly stable, but it was already starting to drift a bit, below MSRP, creeping the map, and people are already undercutting map. So stores, like, if they don't take the inventory from the distributor, then they're cut off from future orders. And not just in Sorcery, they might, like, damage the relationship for their prime games, which are often like Magic and Pokemon, the big games. So
Well,
they
also,
basically have to take it.
It's my understanding that a lot of them just got an invoice. And it wasn't even, they weren't informed it was coming. They were like, hey, next week, just so you know, this is coming through. It was just like, oh, it's here. Take your boxes.
There was a lot of uncertainty with the timing. There was
Yeah.
uncertainty with the timing. There was mixed reports from distributors. I work with like a few different stores to sell boxes to Patreon supporters, and the two stores were getting like totally different answers across the two distributors and about like how much they were getting. And then it was split between a Wave 2 and then a Wave 3. The timing of each was uncertain. Even Wave 2, which is imminent, and then all of a sudden like the call out of the blue or the invoice out of the blue that says like, it's here, take it. You got to take it all, right?
Yeah.
So, after that Rudy sale, price erodes to $100, people are getting dozens or hundreds of boxes in some cases. So they go on TCG Player, they panic, and they undercut each other, and there's quick price erosion. So
Yes. Yeah.
that's the risk in living on the edge as a store owner for these people, which is understandable.
Yeah.
So that's the AL dynamic. I think, like, the same thing happened with when like more beta came out, the price regressed, then it drifted back up higher. That's a normal cycle of more supply coming on. Yeah. I don't know what your view, I'll ask you in a minute what your view of Arthurian Legends is. I think, like, to me, it's premature to say because this is just wave 2. And I think, like, the game is just so much in its infancy. Like, there's still so many people that have never heard of it and can't find it anywhere still. Like, there are people that go to stores, right? Everyone's like a different type of consumer. There's some people that are like seasoned in TCGs. They know to go to TCG Player. They've heard of Team Covenant. I still hear of people that have never heard of Team Covenant as one of the primary partners. Yeah. So they just, if they don't find it in like any local store or anywhere, if they go online to the store locator and don't find it anywhere close, it to them, it's like it doesn't exist yet, and they got to wait. So it's like a mixed perspective from everybody. So I think that's why they're doing more AL and more beta as the game grows to get more exposure to those markets, and people got to go find it in store somewhere. Yes. What do you think about AL and like Wave 2 coming online here in the price?
I mean, the set itself, I think is fantastic. It has a lot of excellent cards. It's going to add a lot of different decks and staples to people's decks. So I think the cards themselves are excellent. I don't think the set itself is bad in any way. I just feel that it was probably too small given the goal of once a year. Okay. If we're going to do a release once a year, I think we need a product every year that's 350 plus cards.
Are you saying that from a collector perspective or a game player concern? Or
that's from a game player perspective. Yeah. Okay. From a gameplay perspective, if you're only going to have one release a year in a society that can't watch 10-minute videos, you need some ways to actually play. And unfortunately, what I think the problem with Arthurian Legends is, not only did we have the very small set, but 55 of those cards are unique and 55 are elite. So you really limited the overall number of ordinaries and exceptionals that can really change up a deck and those options, in my opinion. So I think that's the thing. Whereas with beta, we saw meta changes and new decks coming along for a long time. New decks would just suddenly come along because someone had thought it through. And that's going to be much more common with a 350 plus card set. But with 220 cards, someone's going to figure out the math faster. And the more players we have, the faster they're going to figure out the math. What's the best deck? Because that's what the competitive side of folks are looking for. Now, if we're talking kitchen top players, I think they'll be fine, especially if they're new and they haven't experienced beta at all. But for those folks that are in the game and have been playing for a year or 2 years, just 220 cards to last us until, late 2025 for set 3. I mean, we'll get the little boost with Dragon Lord, but that's not a lot.
Yeah, but it's a counterpoint on that. So it's like 220 plus cards, but on top of a base of 400 in a game that's like pretty new and does have like a lot of strategic depth and multi-dimensional elements to it, right? So do you think like the 220 on top of the 400 will still leave enough room to explore even for experienced players, or do you think that will be satiated in a few months?
I think that's the problem. I think for experienced players, that 220 cards just isn't going to be enough to keep them involved. Now, that can be okay because Sorcery is set up to have a lull. That's what they want. They want to kind of have the waves, right? Of people, high interest around set release. It's going to diminish after 3 to 4 months probably. And then you're going to have this hardcore base of people that just keep playing and playing and playing. Yeah. So that's okay. My biggest concern is, okay, with 220 cards, are people going to figure it out and get bored of it? People who have been playing for a long time, and then they don't come back. And that's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see this small player base shrink from the veteran players. I want to keep those veteran players and get the new players.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, well, I'd have to talk to more like experienced veteran players to kind of get a gauge of their sentiment on it because, well, it might be a bit soon now, but like at the three
Sure.
or 6 month mark,
Yeah, when we
um,
hit April,
yeah,
April or May, it's going to be
yeah.
like, especially if there's no announcements of anything new, right? If we don't even know set three's name,
Well, from a player perspective, it comes down to like, is there enough depth between in the 600 card base for people to still enjoy the experience and find new experiences, discover new deck archetypes, and like an evolving meta without new cards
yes.
being introduced. However, that leads into our next point because you posted a video the other day about the Dragon Lord mini set announcement at Sorcery Con. And then Ed Beard Jr. chimed in, and he has to be careful about what he says because he's under NDA, and all this stuff has not been released yet. But he kind of like alluded to the fact that there might be more depth to this set that people expect. And I was chatting with him a bit, and of course he can't say anything of significance, but it's the same type of sentiment. Like, why he was basically hit me up and he's like, why are people jumping to these conclusions and like poo-pooing this set? Like, yeah, it's smaller than like a core set, but why are they assuming that it's not going to change things up? And I told him like my perspective is that I think people, like I started with, people use other games as a frame of reference. So immediately there's a lot of like Magic people with experience at either in modern Magic or older Magic or somewhere in between. They're used to these secret layers, which
Mhm.
seem like and art like the art in Sorcery is so prominent that people hear like 13 cards. This is like a little art, like a fun little art set, like,
Yeah.
and it's amazing art by Ed, right? So it's like an art thing. But they dismiss like the meta changing potential that a 13 card set could have. And I think that's also because people assume those cards will be like a linear, just like new cards introduced. They don't. I've always like had this theory that, and I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I've speculated that, like, given Eric's background in Path of Exile being like a dungeon crawler type game, and this grid type format having the different elements, airborne, submerged, underground effects, and stuff like that, you could use like a terrain type aspect, either if they roll out a playmat or some kind of like new evolved board state that maximizes the interactions of those elements. So there could be like a wrinkle like that, perhaps,
Mhm.
or something like truly meta changing that's beyond just like new card 13 or so new card designs into the gameplay. I think we're gonna potentially see a surprise in that regard. And then I don't think Eric does anything completely in the absence of collectability. So I think there's gonna be like foil variants or some kind of like chase element of some kind.
Sure.
I can't envision what, but I think he's like one of these Steve Jobs types where he's like unpredictable and he kind of just is super creative and has things we can't imagine. And he's proven that time and time again, in my opinion. What do you think
Yeah.
of all that?
Well, I think the problem is how do you make something that's only 13 cards collectible? I mean, certainly you can add the
Right.
foils or whatever, but it's still 13 cards, which the only way I can think to package that is as a package deal, right? You buy a pack and it comes with all the cards in the set, play sets of those cards. I don't know of any other way to distribute it that makes sense other than that way. They could do maybe one of each card, but then it becomes a problem of, let's say one of the exceptionals is very good. Well, then I have to buy 3 packs to get a full playset of those exceptionals, which could actually end up devaluing the uniques because there are more uniques out there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a weird thing of how they're going to distribute it. I'm really excited to hear how they're going to do it, but I think there's a lot of peril in how they decide to do it. So they have to be very clever. And fortunately, Eric's a clever guy, but
Yeah.
you know,
And
it's
he's
still
been
a
scheming
fraught
this up
thing.
for, even before it came out in Kickstarter, I think he'd been working on the project for 4 to 5 plus years.
Yeah.
So it's not like he might have had this concept in mind for many years and a plan for
Yes.
something. And obviously, like Ed's been painting this for well over a year. He's been doing it in his Patreon. We could all watch him do it live. So yeah, but it's an interesting point. Like I wonder too, like how would they package up since it is so small? Is there a way to I don't know. Like I can't like imagine. I can't predict like how the collectability aspect is going to come into play. I think there's going to be something we don't expect for gameplay to make
Sure.
it very significant and substantial in some way. And maybe like it adds well, I guess we've seen a few cards, so they weren't all in on like maybe going to a multiplayer format, but that's still something that's also possible.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some alternate play format of some kind, whether it be terrain based or multiplayer,
Sure.
whatever. But the
Yeah.
collectability part, I don't know. I just know that Eric has a knack for making us want things
Yes. Yeah.
and making things collectible and desirable. So I also am not concerned, but I'm not even trying to guess, and I'm not trying to worry about it. I just think we're going to be surprised in a positive way on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and my hope was, and a lot of people took the video I made about it wrong. I wanted the set to be larger, but the only reason I wanted it to be larger was kind of as a band-aid because the Arthurian Legend set was so small. I wanted it to be larger to kind of get us to that 350 threshold to last us the year. Now,
yeah.
I know that couldn't happen just because of logistics. And it is Ed said, he can't paint another 40 paintings.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
But that was kind of my thing, was maybe they were going to try to use it as a band-aid because I just don't feel that there's enough cards in the Arthurian Legends. Now that's just my opinion. Some people may be perfectly happy with it. Certainly I think new players will be. They've got 600 cards to play with.
Yeah.
But just coming back to getting through the year, and we don't have a timeline. I mentioned that in one of my videos, right? We don't know.
Right.
They've been very cautious about timelines, and I think we all understand why, because beta was late. There were a few misses with the AL delivery, not nearly as many, but there were some.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
get the hesitancy there.
Yeah, I could argue that both ways. I think that's smart. Like I always said that they should at minimum not have a date. Like give it a quarter. At least
Yes.
like it's kind of like when you do like I don't know like what line of business you're in, but like I've done like scheduling work before, worked with schedulers, and like when it's long term, like 6 to 9 a year out, you give like a planning package, like a very loosey goosey timeline. You say like it's going to come out in the back 6 months of the year. You get a little closer, and it's either third quarter or fourth quarter, and then there's more detail and fidelity as you get closer. And then once you have assurances, like almost like guaranteed, it's already on the boats. Like maybe, I don't know, that might buy you a couple months, like lead time to tell stores and stuff. I was talking to Elvira about this coincidentally today, and I told her my view of it is if it's like it's worse for businesses who need to like fund like purchase of the product and sell the product and like communicate with their consumers on when they can make it available to them, or like take pre-orders so that they don't get undercut by a Rudy or somebody. And then it's also bad for like event coordinators because they want to coordinate their event after release. Like it'd be a disaster if they had an event and then like it wasn't available yet, especially if it's a big like Sorcery Con style event. So you almost have to like hedge and like at least know within a month, and then be conservative and maybe have your event a month or two after the target. But anyway, I'm gonna share my screen and try to find that post that Ed had so we can. Because there was another thought I had on the mini set based on what he had said in his comments. All right, I think I got it. Let's take a look at this really quick. All right. All right, so you posted your video link here. Is that coming across with decent resolution? It looks blurry on my side.
It's okay on my side. Yeah,
okay.
Just fine. Yeah.
It must just be the StreamYard view. All right, so at the Sorcery Contested Realm Community Facebook group, you posted here yesterday the most concerning announcement from Sorcery Con, and it was like about the mini set release, right? And then Ed Beard Jr., of course, for those that are new to the game, he's a legendary artist, has been in the industry for over 4 decades, and is like the master of dragons. It was really like a nice moment at Sorcery Con because Eric like got up there on stage and he was like, "I'm living out a childhood dream by having Ed like paint all these dragons for me."
Yeah,
it was kind of like a man-child type moment, like a kind of like a cute type of thing. He's like, "Oh, this is like my dream. I got Ed painting." So like Ed, of course, was very flattered, and his daughter was there, so it was a really nice moment. So he's doing like all these like by hand, and Ed talked about how this is like this Dragon Lord concept. He was on my channel like well over a year ago when this first came out. He talked about it, how like he manifested this whole story around the Dragon Lord and the lore of it, and there's like a whole story around it, which he touches on here, which again makes me think the gameplay, the way he says it here, I think the gameplay is going to incorporate that in some way. So He says, I believe due to the lack of specificity on release dates, etc., there's some and he does speech to text, so if there's some grammatical things, that's why.
Yeah.
He says there's a few misconceptions and guesstimates that are being made based on lack of information, which is true. Lack of information is the story of sorcery. We never know what's going on, what's coming, when it's coming. Like it's just like it's a leap of faith
Yeah.
type of thing. Like we love the product, we love the story, and we're just taking it day by day. All right. So, but because of that, people speculate endlessly and jump to cynical conclusions or positive ones, depending on their bias. All right. What I can tell you is this: one of the reasons for why I chose to agree to work on Eric's Curiosa on the adaptation of my storyline for the Dragon Lord was, in fact, heavily rooted in the understanding that this product would, in fact, be available for LGS, and nothing that I've been informed alters my understanding of that. So, I think, did you have a comment about like the distribution strategy?
Yeah. Because at Sorcery Con, what was it made with the announcement was that they are still discussing it with how to distribute it with partners, which to me sounded like they were probably talking to Cardio or maybe Team Covenant or someone that they have that type of relationship with, rather than LGSs. But maybe that wording was just they were speaking off the cuff, so maybe that wording just wasn't what I thought it was, but that was how I interpreted it.
Right. It wasn't. It was just like a one-liner that was kind of open to interpretation. So this is interesting. He says, and in fact, I look forward to a world premiere at one of my own local, very large LGS stores when the mini set is released, to be announced. So a world premiere event of some kind is going to happen with Ed Bear Jr. Involved. I have not been informed of any change or limitation on access to this product. I can also tell you without revealing any secrets, this is a very powerful enhancement pack of 13 different cards. So very powerful. I mean, so I think like, to my knowledge, I don't think Ed plays these games. So I think I got to assume he's going off of stuff that Eric explained to him that like, this is a significant mini set. It's going to be a big deal for the gameplay.
Sure.
All right, what we don't know and must not assume is that the game mechanic of these cards is anything typical. So he's saying it's atypical. Again, it's not just, that's where I start like, connecting the dots and saying maybe it's not just 13 new cards. It's got some wrinkle we can't imagine yet. And the world does not know to what extent the game mechanic of the cards will alter, enhance the way in which the game can play. It could be that there are reasons why this mini set must be no longer than it is currently in order to maintain an integrity of play balance and mechanic integration. Yeah, what do you think about that? Like, I guess if it's a radical like adaptation to the core game play style, then yeah, probably 13 cards, like more than that might be a risk. If it were just 13 normal cards, you would think like they could design 13 more cards no problem and not break the game, right? So that is another hint that like makes me think maybe it's more than meets the eye, right?
Yeah. But the real question is it basically changing the format? Are we expanding to more players? Which,
we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine if they are, but if the cards are designed to bring on a 4-player format, which is perfectly fine, that doesn't help lengthen necessarily the time frame for 2-player games, right? Yeah. So it just depends. Now, if it's like what you're thinking, where it enhances the board in some way or changes the board, yeah, that could do all sorts of great things.
Yeah, because I mean, like when Kickstarter came out, they were teasing like in the Discord. Like it was kind of funny because like it kept blowing away expectations. Like every few hours, really. I was gonna say daily, but really like by the hour, it was like boom, next target, like next milestone met. The way Kickstarter works is when you hit certain financial goals, they throw in more like bonus incentives, right? So I think they had like a few, preconceived bonus incentives, but then it kept blowing through those milestones, and they kept like dreaming up new stuff. They're like, okay, we're gonna do like Eric had these other like all these different artworks that weren't used in alpha. Sure. So like all of a sudden we see like, okay, fine, we'll throw like in these artworks like these more cards, these more like box toppers, pledge pack stuff, right? And so one of them was if we hit, I think they said if they hit like 4 million or something, they would roll out a 4-player version of the game, which was like super ambitious, and they had to back off of that. But that's been something that, presumably they're very heavily like game designing at that time. So multiplayer could be a thing. The Beast of the Bay guys on the West Coast and San Francisco have experimented with that format. So, the community took it upon themselves, but the design team has also been looking at that. So I'm just saying, it could be multiplayer, it could be something else. Let's see. It is after all an entirely. Oh, he's saying he says it's just speech to text stuff. It's an
Yeah,
entirely unique pack, not like any other. Call it a mini module. Mini module. Now it sounds like D&D campaign, right? Like
yeah,
sometime like a new twist on the grid. And I don't know if this is just Ed being loose with words, or I'm just like pushing my own
yeah.
narrative now and kind of reading a lot into it myself. Um, if you will, introducing a simulated gateway into a different world that the Dragon Lord comes from, as I indicated at SorceryCon in my presentation. So, like, what would be super awesome is like when you hear Ed talk, like in his Patreon or when he does these interviews and stuff, like he's an amazing storyteller and is like great depth. He just has like insane imagination, right? So this whole Dragon Lord concept, like every single piece, and like I was in his Patreon watching him paint it, and he was telling the story of the Dragon Lord for each of these. Like it is wild depth. Like he's prepared to do a whole book on this, and if so, I imagine like Eric probably worked with him to understand that storyline and somehow incorporated that into the way these cards play in the game more than just
Sure.
linear addition of cards. So
Yeah,
I think that's my hunch. So here he gets into it. My next art book details the storyline and history of the world of the characters in the Dragonlord mini set, which is amazing. Hopefully that comes within a reasonable amount of time after release, because I think that is also an enhancer on the desirability of this and the appeal of sorcery, that there's this whole art book and lore that like accompanies this module. It's amazing. So the expansive storyline and character bios will be available when this set is released. Okay, so he's already
yeah.
working on that.
Well, I think
And
there's
what?
going to be. Yeah, I think he mentions there's a Kickstarter for it or something. I feel like he's going to do a
Oh,
Kickstarter for the book that's going to
okay.
launch
Let's see.
around the same time. It may have been in one of the comments he makes later because he actually
Okay.
that thread continues.
Oh, okay. All right, so yeah, he's making the point I just was here. It will add greatly to the enjoyment and immersive properties of the mini set. So maybe, I don't know, maybe even the kit comes with a booklet that explains like the history of all these different dragon elements. The mini set is also presented and designed as a highly unique collectible aspect of sorcery. While you have not seen how the final packaging is going to be presented, I can assure you it is extremely unique, not like anything that has been done in sorcery before, and will indeed be very much a standalone collectible, while still be an integrated playable aspect of the core game. Okay. What I can say is that Eric has spared no detail to make the presentation over the top, per usual. The Dragonlord mini set was never intended to be a small expansion, okay, to the game, but in fact a unique, highly collectible enhancement pack presented as its own entity, and it definitely achieves that precisely.
Yeah.
All right, interesting.
So the real question is, I mean, when you're doing these type of enhancements, if this is a big mechanics change to the game, I've played enough TCGs to know that some mechanics just fall flat and they don't work out the way you want them to.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I'm not.
and
Yeah.
when you've only got 13 cards,
It's yeah, heightened risk, right? And that's the stopgap to the next major large set, as Simon says it's going to be. What do you think about? Did you come from you said you came from a miniatures background?
so I played TCGs for a long, long time, but then let me see, I
Not
quit around.
TCGs. I'm talking about miniatures,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
the
So, but
war
that was
game.
yeah. So I played card games for a long time, and then I swapped over to miniatures for about the past
Okay.
15 years. Yeah.
The reason why I ask is because like I had friends as a kid like painting those things. I had no idea it was like a playable thing. I thought these
Oh
guys
yeah.
just were like wannabe artists and like wanted to paint little warriors and stuff,
No, no,
right?
no.
But
Yeah.
then like I go into a LGS in recent years and I see people with this like big elaborate gaming table and actually doing some kind of combat type campaign thing. So like in a nutshell, how does that work? And do you think there is a tie-in from miniatures that could be incorporated into the sorcery grid-based game that currently exists?
I mean, they could, but I mean, here's the thing. Technically, they could make it so that every card is replaced by a model, but I think that's asking a lot of the average
Yeah, and
card game player.
right. And I don't mean that in a literal sense that they're going
Yeah.
to start selling like little miniatures, but like the way it plays out in combat, is it
Mhm.
similar or different, or could it augment the core game design of sorcery in some way,
I mean,
or is
there are
it
so many
just
different.
entirely different?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a whole different, because you're talking about movement when you're measuring, distances and that type of thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of dice rolling. I can't
Hmm.
imagine they'll incorporate a ton of dice rolling. A
Yeah.
lot of card player folks don't like that. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, and then like if you did incorporate a bunch of that and said like, well, that's just an alternate format you could do, then you're kind of like segmenting the market and like creating this little sub segment. I guess it would be like people would love or hate it, right? Take it or leave
Yeah,
it. You
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
limit your your sales potential or the market size by doing that, I suppose.
yeah.
Okay. So maybe I'm overthinking it. Let's see. Let's see if there's any other. We're almost to the end here, I think. Also, keep in mind that, as with all sorcery products thus far, we cannot take off the can't take off the table the possibility of further artistic collectible variants that will expand the 13 cards into more on the collectible side and not the playable mechanic side. So he's hinting at variants. We have many awesome announcements that come as Dragonlord Miniset prepares to make its debut next year. That'll be cool if they start teasing more details so we can stop speculating and again, like our inclination to assume the worst or like, just be like blind optimists and set ourselves up for disappointment in some way. I think it's going to be great, but people have their own biases. Also, in the meantime, I've had conversations with the team demonstrating that they are aggressively working on improving the availability to LGS distributors so that AL and other products can be available across the board. All right, that's good because distribution has been a bit erratic at times, like too much, too little, none at all, all over the place, which it makes it very difficult to onboard stores and individuals, like people to get interested in the game if they can't find the product, if they can't find people to play with, to teach them how to play.
Yeah.
All right, this in itself is a huge undertaking, as we can imagine, they definitely want to do it right. Let me see. Well, certainly it is a reasonable and debatable opinion on whether or not the AL set should have been larger at 220 cards. So this is a point you made on here and in your video. And certainly reasonable to ask the question of whether it's enough cards for a main set on a one-year release. But indeed, I am right there with everyone regarding the need to fully satisfy at least the majority of demand and have distribution improved. Okay, so it's kind of a side point independent of the the mini set. Let me just skim if you made any other.
Yeah, he made a couple other statements in there.
When is this storybook going to be available? The Dragonlord world and character storyline will be part of my next art book, which we're looking to do as a Kickstarter. Okay, for sometime in the very near future, probably first quarter of this year. Wow, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if that comes out, so if it's first quarter of this year, I would guess it could coincide with the release, but I think that would come before the release, which is, I think, great because then we get to know these characters. Well, actually, he's going to launch the Kickstarter, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean fulfillment will happen before the release. Yeah. But it would be nice. I mean, there'll be some kind of element of campaign. Like usually when you do a Kickstarter, you have a lot of marketing materials, whether it be visuals and stories, like teasers of the stories, but also perhaps little video segments. And if like Eric's very good at video design, of course. They hired Drew. He's really good at that. So maybe they could help Ed with that. Maybe Ed does it himself or has his own people. I don't know. But I think that'll be an avenue to get familiar with these characters before, we get the sorcery product, which is great.
Sure.
No matter what, it'll be available one way or the other by the time the set comes out. Okay, so by the time the set comes out.
Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. All right, man. It's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. And the problem is all we can do is speculate right now because we don't have much to go on other than that big statement that Ed just made. So, which I appreciate that he took the time to actually do that and provide all what he could provide.
Yeah.
But we're still speculating.
Yeah. Let's see what the chat thinks here. Quentin Kelly. Looks like a rapper, man. Look at this guy. He's in my Discord and my Patreon. Huh. Glad that Simon said the next set will be significantly bigger. Yeah, so that was another, in the Kevmo interview, he said it's going to be, I forget how he worded it, but I got the impression it'll be comparable to Alpha, maybe. He said significantly bigger than Arthurian Legends, so that only leaves a 150 card delta between Alpha and AL. Yeah, so you think that's good. So what do you think the optimal set size is? Did you say 350 to 400?
If we're doing 1 year releases, I think you need about 350 cards minimum. I think you might be able to get away with 300 from time to time, but I would really like to see 350 as the consistent goal for a once a year release.
Okay.
Just to maintain one, it's going to be, it's going to take longer for people to try to figure out the strategy. I mean, I remember when Ice Age came out for Magic, there was the card Necropotence and everyone thought the card was awful. Turns out it's one of the most amazing cards in the game.
Yeah.
But it took a while for people to figure that out because Ice Age was a big set. So that's the thing. So that's why I really think for the 1 year schedule to work, we need 350 card sets minimum.
Okay. Yeah, and I think, thinking on that point, Eric's a collector and a game player. He plays vintage, old school Magic, and he's got this massive dead TCG collection. So I know he collected those games, but I gotta assume he also played those games in the '90s or maybe in latter years. So point being, he's seen a lot of games succeed and fail, come and go, fail for many reasons. So between him and then they have experienced design people, some of them are younger guys, but some are older, middle-aged, wash-ups like us. So we've been around, man. We've seen things. We've seen other failures, and we learn from those. So I imagine it was a calculated move to do the smaller set. I think that was done as a hedge to make sure they didn't lean forward too aggressively with another massive set and potentially break the greatness that Alpha was and the momentum they had there. Because there's a lot of art. Art was not a limiting factor, I don't think, unless he's and he is a purist to some extent on the art fitting the game mechanic and the theme. There's been some artworks done pre-alpha that he hasn't figured out how to make the mechanic work yet. However, there was a lot more paintings already been done for years that have not been made it into the game. So art's not a limiter. I think it's strategic, making sure the gameplay is sound. For this one, and then again, they've been designing this game for many years. So I think this next darker set, Angels and Demons or whatever people are speculating it is, that artwork's been in the work for a very long time, and I know the play testers have been play testing that set already. So that's why they're postured for taking a next step forward for a bigger set, which would be nice. All right. What are people talking about? There's too many words here in the chat. If people have a question, throw it out there. I guess in the meantime, no. What other things didn't we touch on? I guess it was the beta. You want to talk about beta a bit?
Yeah, the beta reprint.
That's what really triggered people today, it seems.
Yeah.
Because there's just to set the stage for this. There's a fact, people like you and I, because I've watched your videos and I heard you say, and we talk about it in Discord and stuff. We see beta as a game piece types. Game piece is just a funny word that I like tossing around because it's so triggering and goofy. But it's the player set, as you call it, more PC wise, right? So you had alpha, 29,000 printed. We know the exact number. We can back into the math to know exactly how many foils there are, et cetera, non-foils and foils. So we know the scarcity and how hard it is to get the foils. Beta, we have no idea what the print run was. There's been a couple waves, and the people. So the interesting dynamic of beta is people were priced out of alpha. It just exploded right away. The foils got wildly expensive on the high end. So to get a master set, and it's a very large set, so to get 67 of the unique foils when they start at a couple $100 and go up to thousands of dollars is impractical for 99.9% of people. So they default to beta, and even if beta is a player set, it's still very hard to get those foils. So there was an outsized demand for that as a collector set as well. But now people those collectors also want the conventional norm of you need to cut off printing and tell us it's done to protect my investment, to protect make my cards valuable and not erode my value. But their philosophy is, as paraphrasing from how I understand what they've said, is that they need to, and I agree with this, they need to continue to do measured printing to get it to certain markets that have been disadvantaged, or actually they have metrics that they think they can gauge genuine demand, get it to those markets. And also the game again is in its absolute infancy and is never been regularly available. We've never had regular availability of alpha, certainly because it was once and done, but beta, there's I guess the people that know of TC, Team Covenant, right? Could get it most of the time. But even there was a couple months. So they need to have that available. So as the game grows, which it still is, and we can see that in attendance at major events like Sorcery Con and Play Network signups and all these things, they need to have product available so people. And you don't want your first enclave to the game be, hey buddy, go to TCG Player and buy a bunch of singles, or go pay well above MSRP for the pre-con kit that doesn't exist. Isn't available at your store. You got to have boxes available because the box opening experience of beta is profound. A lot of us love that, and you want people to experience that as their first introduction to the game. So what do you think? How do you think they find that balance of product availability and protecting the collectors.
Yes, I mean, I've moved through a lot of games in my gaming career, and always to fund the next game, I sell whatever the collection is of the prior game.
Mm.
So I understand the argument that people don't want beta to be 1 penny per card. I get that. But then again, I also understand the argument that, we do want to make it available to players. So should certain cards be whatever X value? Now, of course, that changes from person to person. But in the announcement, Simon made very clear that they are going to try to target this. And I think that that's
Yeah.
the important part of it, right? They've said that at least a portion of this, and I'm hoping the bulk of it, goes to these introductory store kits that they're going to do to try to get more LGSs involved. That's why I'm hoping the bulk of this reprint goes. Now, I don't know how they do that, the logistics of that, I'm wondering about. But if that's what they do, if they're targeting it to new markets, I don't think that you'll see the type of erosion that people are worried about, because in theory, you're going to have more players, which means more demand, which at least will keep the card prices stable. Maybe they'll drop a little bit, but a 10% drop isn't a terrible thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, at the end of the day, demand drives everything. These are pop culture collectibles. I mean, without demand, everything is completely worthless. When there's high demand, things explode.
Yes.
And it can be very dramatic, and it ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Go ask the
But
Pokemon people right now.
yeah, and there's a lot of factors to that. I mean, like, so there's growth that needs to be satisfied, but then there's also, I mean, there's the issue of market confidence. Someone was talking here. Let's see, hang on a second. So he says, Noble Dragon Game says, without the collectors, this game never would have survived as long as it has. If you ignore collectors and print beta into the ground, I think you risk losing a major part of your market share. So there's this balance of like making the product available to new people, and you say targeting the right people. One for one is, can they measure that effectively? Can they actually distribute it effectively to those markets? There's risk in everything. You could send too much to allegedly underserved markets and come to find out that's not real demand. It's just flippers or whatever. Yeah. Or whatever. There's all types of like pitfalls. And then just the fact of printing more, like, collectors immediately jump to like, you're just repeating the mistakes of every other game. It's, doom and gloom. Like, you're going to fail. Like, and they look at singles prices and they're like, we don't need it now. And they're skeptical that that demand growth will be able to absorb it. There's a lot of unknowns there.
Yeah. Well, I can get that. People get crazy over their money. I mean, what I do for the federal government involves people's money, and people get crazy. I've had my life threatened over $1. It happens all the time. So I get that people who have dropped, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars into this game, they want their cards to have value. I do understand that, but I don't think that this reprint that they're talking about, as long as they do what they're saying they're going to do, that's important. I don't think this is printing it into the ground.
Well, yeah, I mean, the challenge there is they haven't. It was pretty vague, right? They said they were going to reprint more. They want to get into the right markets. We don't have any details of what that actually means. Like, how much more? What markets are you talking about? Is it Europe that's been starved? Is it South America? How many players are really in South America, I wonder? Like Brazil, Argentina, like whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, like, when you look at the Kickstarter metrics, like, the vast majority was in the U.S. Like, there was even like across Europe, it was very sparse and scattered. So it was pretty bold risk and like bold aggressive move to go international right out of the gate. So like, yes, they might be underserved, and they really never had reliable product, and it's more expensive there. So I believe that is true to an extent, but I don't have a good feel of like how large that market is. I know the Europeans are super passionate, and we see a bunch of them in Discord, but it's like, is it hundreds of people, thousands in each country, tens of thousands? I mean, you got to be careful there, because distribution will pull all types of shady antics saying they need more, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I don't, with these introductory store kits, I don't know how you run those through distribution. But I mean, unless Eric's Curiosa is literally handling this themselves, but I can't imagine they're doing that. So how do you get these introductory store kits to new stores who intend to build a community? I think that is the biggest hurdle. And I think that's the thing that, yes, if you're concerned about this beta reprint ending up in the hands of someone who's just going to flip it to the market for $100 a box or $120 a box. I can understand that.
Yeah, if these new stores have to procure it through distribution, I don't know like what degree of control like Eric's Curiosa has with the distributors, but like one like concept I can envision if they did have full control and can do something like this, or if they, I guess, were able to provide the product direct to these stores, is you look at like who signs up for the Play Network, the store Play Network, right? And then you
Yeah.
say like, okay, you're a new store to
Mhm.
the new store network. We're going to give you X amount of product. It's going to be 2-3 cases, something like fairly modest that they would need
Yeah.
to support their local store. Host some events, prove to us that you hosted a couple events, and then we'll secure you some more, right? Do it in
Yeah.
a measured way to target those new stores signing up.
Yes.
If you limit the quantity that they can get and you target it in that way, you do control it to some extent. However, like I'm always wondering from the LGS's perspective, what is their incentive to be interested enough in Sorcery to pick it up with the annual release, with the erratic supply situation we've had, with the uncertainty of store kit timing, availability, contents. Like there's a lot of like things and a lot of competition in the market as it is. And if they're truly brand new to the game, they got to learn it. You know, like
Yeah.
there haven't been
Yeah.
precons available to really like self-educate and learn. So it's tough. Like you got to kind of like go out and campaign and really push it to these stores, I guess, if you want to get serious about that, or depend on
Yeah.
the community to do that, which they have to a large extent to date.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Um,
the thing. Like these new hires, the folks that they said they've hired now and increased the team, I'm hoping that at least one or two of those folks are going to be dedicated to this push to get these new stores involved to sell the game. And I don't
yeah.
remember everyone that they hired. I mean, we know that one was Ira, but Ira's going in to do the rules and not really, I don't think, to push the game out to stores.
I think they said it's, and by the way, like Ed's in the chat here. He wanted to say hello to you. I knew you were like happy he commented on your post. So
Hey Ed,
shout
thanks
out.
for the comment. I appreciate
Shout
it.
out from the legend there. When we were at Sorcery Con, I'm pretty certain they said that Drew and Jesse's focus would be to work with the LGSs. And I think even in the Kevmo interview, I thought, I don't know if he mentioned Jesse specifically, but I remember he said Drew and I think Chase work for Simon. Of course, like Simon's the
Yeah,
director of operations or something
operations.
to that
Yeah.
effect. So like
Mhm.
Eric handles all the creative, and I assume that means like the developer team, I don't know like if they have people helping with art just yet, but they said that's a goal to bring on like an art director type.
Sure.
But then on the operations side, Simon runs that department, so to speak, and then those people work for him. So, but I'm pretty sure he said Drew and somebody else, it might have been Jesse, are doing the LGS stuff. So we're not sure what that means yet, like what the strategy is, like how they're going to go about doing that. But apparently, and I think this is great, there's going to be some focus there. Like I went
Yeah.
to this LGS near me a few weeks back and just talked to the store owner. You know, he was in my community group and won one of the auctions on an altar card. So I was like, hey man, you live like an hour from me, like right across the street from my framer. So I hand delivered it to him and brought in a few paintings that I picked up from the framer, and I had like a long conversation with him, and it was like very eye-opening. Like I think they should go to stores and talk to these store owners, because I was talking to him and he was like asking me some very basic stuff, and I was surprised because he's in like the Facebook groups and stuff. He was like, do you know anything about the next set? When's it coming out? Do you know when store kits are coming? Do you know what's going to be in the store kits? Like all these things that like they seem like fundamental for what a store owner would need to know to
Yeah.
support and engage in this product. And it's just not like and it's I don't know if it's that it's not readily discoverable. It's like not like this guy's slacking. Like he knows how to play the game very well, and he teaches it to people in his store. He's been doing learn to plays, so he's like pretty into it. Yet he seemed like pretty disconnected. He just didn't know anything about the release cycle and like incentive, like how the company envisions he is supposed to incentivize adoption and growth. And I think I've heard companies say that they want to leave that to the stores to kind of figure out on their own. And you know, even the way you play the game, you tell your own stories and stuff like that. I think that works to some extent, but like in the early stages when you're trying to get traction and convince people to take it on, there's got to be some kind of marketing push to
Yeah.
or support to do that, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean that's the big thing, right? You've got to convince these stores that it's worth it to take on sorcery and that it's profitable for them. Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's all they care about. Uh, LGSs have plenty of dead product on their shelves, and they don't need another dead product on their shelves.
Right.
So that's and I think the once per year release, while I love it, I think that makes Sorcery a harder sell. It's not something that they can reliably sell. Although I have talked to some LGS owners who are like, I love the idea of once a year per release because then I know I don't have to have, you know, $20,000 or $30,000 in capital every 2 months or 3 months like I do with Magic and Pokemon and all those other games. So,
Yeah.
you know, that can be, that's how they need to sell it though. Look, we're going to have Sorcery. You're going to be able to play it. We're going to make sure that it's available throughout the year. That's a
Yeah.
big deal. They got to say that. And then,
Well, that
you
scares
know,
collectors, though. So I think they kind of want to. They don't want to say that. I think because
yeah,
it's dangerous. Like it's like I think they intentionally do not communicate too much as well. Like there's like a too little and there's a too much. You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And I always thought like. I mean I don't I think I don't know I guess it won't go down that road of like what is the right level of engagement and the right like forum for engagement? Is it
Yeah.
through the Discord? Is it through social media? Like Discord is social media, I suppose, but like Facebook page, Facebook group,
Yeah.
email list, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think like going to the cons is invaluable. And I'm
Yes.
not talking just the community cons showing up at that
Yeah.
is
Gen
tremendous.
Con. Yeah.
But
They got
Gen
to go to the
Con,
events. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
SGC Con or whatever. What any of these ones that have like many different board games, many different TCG games, that's where you get exposure. Like I saw from the metrics on the forums I host, there was like a directly correlated uptick. Like even when they went to Spiel Essen, I mean that kind of coincided with the release, so that probably had a lot to do with it. But there was a lot of Europeans signing up for the community Facebook group.
Yeah.
So I assume like Spiel had an effect, right? And
Yeah.
then at Gen Con there was a surge. So
Yep.
people discovered the game, they go look it up online, they find one of
Mhm.
the largest forums and they're in, right? And then we hook
Yeah.
them with like showing them the art and talking about the history and all this fun stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's why,
you gotta show up.
I'd like to see him, maybe go to some of the, Gen Con is the largest board gaming convention in North America, but I'd like to
Yeah.
see them pick up maybe Origins or Gary Con or, just something out west or something out east that
Yeah.
has that type of a presence.
Have
Just
you
to pick
gone
up a few more.
to Gary Con? Like what is the concept of that one?
So I
Do
have
they
not
have
personally been
okay.
to Gary Con, but I do have a friend that goes every year. It's my understanding that it's a lot of old timers.
I was gonna say I only
Yeah.
know of it like through my art interest, right? Because like I've built a relationship with like Tony Sudlow and Jeff Easley. They go like every year, I think. So they
Yeah.
like I know there's like a strong art presence, but I don't know if there's like new games being introduced and showcased, like vendor type things, or if it's just like an art type convention.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of gaming that goes on. It's very heavily
Mm.
focused on role playing, right? Because
Yeah.
the con is dedicated to Gary Gygax,
Yep.
creator of D&D, so very
Okay.
heavy role playing game focus. But I'm pretty sure that, I mean, given the artists that show up, they're Magic artists, so I'm sure TCGs are up there. So I think Sorcery would probably be a good place. And
Yeah.
as a bonus, guys like Alan Pollock go up to that thing. So
Yeah, Tony told me like all the old TSR guys, maker of D&D, like go to that.
Yeah.
So that's why you have Easley, Sudlow, Pollock, Larry Elmore, the old timer artists, the experienced vets, like true legends of the game. So it's really Chris Arneson, who did Warlord CCG. He's in the Facebook group and comments every now and then. Seems like a good guy. So yeah, and I think Doug Kovacs was there. Like, I know he goes fairly frequently. I think another guy that did a few cards for Sorcery, and I assume more maybe when it fits his.
And that's why I think a con like that would be great for Sorcery because those artists are going to be there. There's the guys who did a lot of your cards, and you're going to get Sorcery players to show up. I mean, if Sorcery announced that they were going up to Gary Con, I would go up to Gary Con.
Yeah.
I would make it
I
happen.
think that's what like that's how they should leverage these hires. Like if I worked for them, my pitch would be like, dude, like I'm kind of a people person. I like building communities. I like if you pay for me to go to like every event. I mean, my wife and kids would be pissed probably, but I was like, just pay for my lodging and travel, and I'll go to all these and like sell this game hardcore.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
need someone with like some energy and some drive and like passion for it to just show
Yeah.
up at these things and be like, we'll get a freaking product. Like Eric always talked about from the very beginning. He envisioned people coming into the store, seeing them playing it, saying like, wow, what are those cards? What is that like amazing box design with the art all over it and the intricate gilding now with Arthurian Legends? It kind of sells itself to some extent, at least as a gateway. And then they'll try it and they'll find out it's a great game too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What else? So what else didn't we touch on from your recent video? Like, what are did you get comments against your videos or in
Oh,
Discord or
I
Facebook?
get all
Like
sorts
any
of fun
themes?
stuff.
Yeah, any like interesting themes that pop out that we should address on the reaction
Oh,
and
yeah.
sentiment of the community?
Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, most people think I'm a doomer, and that's I've come to accept that. I mean, I am a deeply pessimistic person. I always have been. I spent the
Yeah.
early part of my life studying atrocities. I don't know
Oh, okay.
why. That's what I did. So you don't get a great view of humankind when all you do is study atrocities.
Do the there's like the Great Famine and like some of these darker like concepts appeal to you because of that? I
Oh,
wonder.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and the darker it goes, the more, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's funny.
but not necessarily like horror. I don't like
Yeah.
horror. I hate horror, but you know what humans do to other humans, that is terrible, really interests me.
Yeah,
So,
I've always been into those types of like, documentaries on serial killers and this and that, like these insane
yeah,
people. But yeah, we're a couple of psychos now. But yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
like the
yeah,
thing is like I resonate with your perspective too because I tend to like get frustrated and vent a lot and stuff too. But
yeah,
like I don't like I try not to be overly cynical, but like I've always been into like investing and stuff in my adult life, like in my once I got into my professional world, like stock market and things like that.
sure,
So I have like a risk averse lens on things and I also like did an MBA in new ventures and entrepreneurship, so I kind of like have studied a lot of companies and TCGs and how they've grown and stuff. So like I'm very analytical in that sense and think about like is this the right play, like what are they doing, why are they doing this, why are they not doing that, and I just have that risk averse approach, so and I'm conservative like that, so I'm thinking about like how do all these moves impact the next step. Like
yes,
if Rudy's selling this shit like super cheap, right at release, right as like all these stores are getting waved to, what's the impact? Like some people are saying like, well, that's great, Mike. Like I could buy this stuff like $95 now.
hmm
It's freaking awesome.
yeah,
As like a
yeah,
guy that just wants to play the game cheaply. But like, what about the store that now is being bullied by their LGS to say like, hey, you said you wanted 300 boxes, take it right now. I don't care that like you can't sell it in MSRP anymore. Like that's your problem. You go sell it
mhm,
for $90 because Rudy sold it for 95 or whatever, 110 or whatever you did, right? And then like all their margins gone, and plus they're like scared because they spent $30,000 to get these hundreds of boxes, and they're on the hook to move it, and then that's where like the selling begets the selling on
yeah.
TCG Player, and it spirals.
Well, and
So
then their players in their store get mad at them because they sell the
yeah,
boxes at 120 instead of 100 like on TCG player. So
yeah,
they just cannot win. They
yeah,
have to take the boxes to get more product for the stuff they sell, and then if they don't price it right, then all of a sudden they're in trouble and they get people who are pissed off and canceling orders and trying to refund. And so I feel for the LGS folks out there. There's just a lot of no-win situations for them.
yeah. So I'm trying to glance at the chat to see the themes, but everybody's like gushing about Ed's appearance at Sorcery Con. He's very articulate and like a really like
Yeah,
great showman, and you could tell like he just exudes passion for his work and
yeah,
pride in his work. And he's saying he's going all out on the Dragon Lord mini set. It's going to be really profound, and like we saw the Archivist they were talking about here,
yes,
like the amount of like details in that is like every like little piece of it. Like if you extract like a like a 4 inch by 4 inch section of like any part of one of Ed's
oh
paintings,
yeah,
it could be like a whole freaking painting in and of
yeah,
itself compared to like some other art you typically see in TCGs where like you get one focal concept and sometimes it could be kind of basic. Like I guess like an interesting example are those desert arts that Aranja Art did. Like
Yeah,
they're just very nicely done, but they're very basic, simple concepts. You know, there's
sure.
not a lot of like detail and depth and complexity. But then you look at their portfolio of work outside of the game, and it's like very, very like detailed and
Yeah.
nice and different. Like with these Dragon Lord things, it's like the most insane thing you're ever going to see on a card because you just lose all that depth. So that's something I'm also very curious to see. Like Eric being such a great art director and Ed being so like invested in to put that amount of time investment. I mean, there's an aspect where he'll be able to sell the paintings for more because of that. You know, it's a more
Yeah.
substantial piece. They're large, et cetera, different ways to monetize. But how does Eric having that artistic mindset take advantage of all that detail and showcase that detail? Like, could
Yeah.
there be jumbo cards? Like, I'd love to have some jumbo cards up back there, or
I
something
mean,
like in a larger
Magic
form
did that,
factor.
so he's a fan of Magic, so yeah, he could do some jumbo
Yeah,
cards.
I know. Like,
Um,
I think like during the Kickstarter era, I was like, dude, do some jumbo cards of some of these like more
yeah.
detailed alpha cards. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you could do like I don't remember the dragons specifically, but there was and I don't remember who mentioned this, and I wish I could remember your name in the Discord, but there was a old format called Elder Dragon Highlander,
Hmm.
and I don't remember who mentioned it. I wish I could remember their handle. But I thought it would be interesting if if the 13 card dragon set really changes the fundamentals of the game. What if it introduces some type of format where you take on an aspect of the dragon? You're one of the dragons, and then you print
Uh.
those jumbo cards you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like, yeah, I keep going. Like, I really want him to do a terrain based thing. Like, how does he incorporate aspects of Path of Exile into sorcery? Because he did, like, I don't know. I mean, there's like little things like the Eric's Curiosa has the little aspect that he asked Francesca Brawl to paint into it, and I forget what they freaking call that thing. It's like an item or a relic you discover in the game that drops in the game. It's really hard to get. Mirror
Uh,
of something or other,
yeah.
Calandra or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's not it. But there's like that from like an artistic aspect, and he uses like certain names. I think like I thought he said the Raidenous Titan, the like the region of Wraith or something is from not
Oh,
Wraith. The Raidenous Titan. There's like this region in Path of Exile that comes from.
that comes
There's
from.
things like
Sure.
that, but like the game design, the dungeon crawler aspect, the discovery of items, artifacts, stuff like I guess
Yeah.
that's probably intrinsic to the game design to some extent, but how do you take that to the next level with the
Yeah.
multi dimensions would be sick, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it'd be great if, because generally speaking in gameplay, the undersurface doesn't typically play a lot of importance in the game. So it would be very cool if whatever they're doing with the 13 card set somehow enhances the gameplay in the undersurface. So,
Okay. What is Alan's like the old he's always got the cold water take. No one wants jumbo cards. Transformers failed because there weren't meaningful and affordable accessories to protect the large card size.
well, there
Well,
was
it's not like it's like a fun it's like an art piece to me. It's not
yeah.
like it's supposed to be like a valuable collectible.
I think Paladin Shield, the company now, they make sleeves for just about everything that fits
Yeah.
almost anything. So yeah, if you go to Paladin Sleeves, I think they can sleeve up. I mean, they've got sleeves for some stuff for Kingdom Death that's just ridiculous size for a sleeve. So
They have like top loaders and stuff too, like for
Mhm.
uncut sheets. I was talking to who's that historian in Magic that knows everything? Travis King. I reached out to him. I was like, dude, you know everything about Magic. Like, what could I do with these uncut sheets? And he was like, oh, well, they got these top loaders from Ultra Pro or something. He's a real nice guy. Oh yeah, Mirror of Calandra is the name of the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. So like these top loaders are like full like uncut sheet size, and I got the foil
Ow.
sheets, right? So it's
Yeah.
foil on one side, foil on the other. I don't want to
Mhm.
compromise one side in a conventional frame. I was like, maybe I'll get these top loaders and just put them on my shelf and turn them around like every couple
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
something like that. But I don't know. We're on a wild tangent now. Let's see. Yeah, people are talking about like the Magic jumbo cards that they have. People are into these jumbo cards, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chester's Cat promo. Inquest
Mhm.
magazine. Yeah, that's right. They had the jumbo cards in Inquest.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is your guy JC. He says Elder Dragon Highlander or EDH is the roots of MTG's
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah,
Commander
yeah,
friendly.
and that's what I don't know. Maybe the dragons could be like that, so I don't know.
Yeah,
So
he plays a dragon. I love that
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
I mean, the Dragon Lord looks like, is that one they spoiled? I forget if that was an
I think they
avatar.
said that was an avatar. Yeah, I
Okay.
think they confirmed the dragon lord himself is an avatar. So
Yeah. What else did we miss? Like, was there any other interesting takes in response to your video, either on Dragon Lord mini set, AL reprint, beta reprint? I know people are going nuts in the Discord today. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
one guy had a comment here where he said, like, when they advertised the first reprint of beta, they said it was going to be very limited and targeted to underserved markets. So now some people are like upset and say, like, well,
yeah,
then they lied to us because now they're printing again. What
yes,
happened to only serving these underserved markets? Didn't you satisfy them? I don't know. Maybe the game grew. Like, the thing is, like, when they say something, it's only good for like the next 5 seconds. Like they're changing their mind constantly. Like Eric does
yeah,
this too on like really significant design things and stuff. But like everything, I think it's like pervasive in everything. Business strategy. They're like, I think they have some degree of strategy. We don't know what it is. They don't tell us what the roadmap and the plan is. But they're also reactive too, and kind of see the way things are playing out. Or the dynamics healthy, and then they adapt and adjust. Well, just like is obvious observable that everyone was like really upset that there was no supply in Europe and South America. So they're like, yeah, we recognize that. I guess what happened, I think there was short notice on their eligibility to order. And then the game was just very unknown then. So there was dramatic awareness creation after the deadline for them to order. So that's why I think they were shorted. Not necessarily shorted, but like the timing of supply
yeah,
wasn't conducive to the pace of growth
yeah,
that happened. So they had to print more. So if they're printing for those reasons, I don't know. You got to kind of be like a savvy PR person to say like again, say enough but not too much that people are going to
yes,
hyper speculate and mince
yeah,
words because that's
yeah,
what we do.
yeah. And that's the thing. I just think. I mean, they Simon was very clear in the interview with Kevmo that this is going to be very targeted, and I
Yeah.
get that some people are like, well, but this is a second reprint, and they shouldn't be doing another one. I can understand that, but if they do it the way they're saying and they grow the game, then there hopefully will be enough players to absorb this extra product, and it goes into the hands of players. But of course, there's always the risk that it ends up going into the hands of people who just flip it. I mean
Yeah.
that's always a concern. So I get that, but we're all in this together, and I feel like this
Oh.
is sort of like where you've got where there's that thing where you stand and you fall back and someone has to catch you.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for EC, and they're either going to catch us or maybe they let us drop.
Well, like I say, I think the entire project from day zero was a complete leap of faith. Like I
Yeah,
YOLO'd hardcore on the Kickstarter just because I freaking like was amazed by the product and I was like impressed with Eric's background and stuff. And I was like, this guy like really has like some serious artistic design chop. So it's going to be like a profound art project. Absolute worst case scenario. Hopefully the freaking game is good. And
yeah,
like the way people were like talking all day all night on Discord, there was like a lot of issues with it early on, like well before like a year and a half
oh
to 2 years
yeah,
before
yeah,
Kickstarter, but people were like very invested in refining it, so I think they were putting the work in. But yeah, and then like ever since then, like I say, we don't really know what's coming next and when, and just like the Dragon Lord mini set's the perfect example. Like, hey guys, next year it's coming. Like, yeah, no shit. We kind of knew that, right? Unless you're
yeah,
gonna drop it for Christmas, but
yeah, yeah,
it was kind of
yeah,
like a announcement, but it
yeah,
wasn't like what half of the year, what quarter. We're still kind of just speculating, but
yeah,
I don't know. Again, like you don't want to overcommit and underdeliver, so this is like the extreme opposite of the way they were going and saying like it's coming, it's gonna be great. Here's some teasers. Don't worry, just
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Take it day by day.
But we can't go so far that we don't get anything. That the
Yeah,
comms officially kind of die off, and because we're going to need, especially I think with the smaller Arthurian Legends set, we're going to need some teasers, some information, something to keep us motivated and excited for the next set, and to keep playing the game. Especially once we get into that April-May timeframe, I really expect the lull to get pretty ugly. So
yeah, yeah. Well, it was like that. I mean, I think it was like we all have a different lens, right? And like
yeah,
us were early adopters. So like, I mean, the freaking time from like discovery of Discord. I was like one of the first people on the Discord when it was first stood up. So like the wait from then till Kickstarter was like, I mean, it didn't seem long, honestly, because it was like super fun. It was almost like bitter. I was almost like, I don't really want this game to come out. I just want to talk about it forever, like and be part of this community in the Discord and just speculate and
Sure.
have fun, like influence. Because like Eric was very active in discussion. He was like taking our feedback and asking for our ideas too. So it was a fun time, right? And like I was
Sure.
thinking to myself, I was like, man, this is all going to change when this product's out. Like the focus is going to be like the cards and like whatever. Like people are going to just be chasing cards, buy, sell, trade. It's like a whole different, like the whole economy
Yes.
aspect comes in and just the vibe changes. And then like there was this inordinate wait until beta. And then
Mhm.
beta was largely just like a reprint of alpha. So it wasn't like new to us early adopters. So
Yeah.
there was just like such like a pent up demand and a long time frame to AL. It's just like a real high bar to kind of match alpha. And then I don't know. We're chomping at the bit for the next, and we're only a couple months in, so it's gonna be another crazy long 1 year wait. Unless like this Dragon Lord set like could really shake things up,
Yeah.
Sati-
Yeah.
if this can satisfy us from now and then it comes out, let's say like back end of first quarter, early second quarter, hopefully first 6 months of the year,
Yeah.
in the spring, let's say. I think that would be pretty ideal.
Yeah.
And then if that like satisfies us through summer, gets
Yeah.
us to Gen Con or something. I know you said like so. Let's talk about when you want the next set to come
Yeah,
out.
I want Gen Con to be the release. I mean, I
Yeah,
think given that Sorcery's player base is primarily in the US currently, I think Gen Con makes sense as a release. A lot of companies do their big releases at Gen Con. It's very common. Even to just do a preview with a limited amount of product that they've had shipped in via air or whatever. So
yeah,
I would really like to see some type of a limited, at a minimum, a limited release at Gen Con. Now that may not be possible. It could be that if we're talking 350 cards, maybe they can't do that in that kind of time frame, and we're going to have to wait till quarter four 2025. But I would really love for Gen Con to become their annual launch event.
yeah. I
And then
agree.
that way we kind of all have a time frame, right? It kind of
Yeah,
exists for all of us. August of every year, we know something new is coming. So we can always talk about that. It's always going to be August. And we don't have this, well, it's October, it's November, it's December.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, like, I think Liz had put out there as we were talking to her at Sorcery Con and then in her Patreon and stuff. She said, like, part of it, like, she was going through some personal stuff, right?
Mhm.
She had, like, a pet, that passed away. So she was like dealing with that, right? And there was this last piece she was working on. It was very significant to her, like a very profound piece, and really important to her that it be in the set. And Eric really wanted it in the set, so it took her like I think at least a couple months longer, that beyond the deadline of when it was needed, really to get
Oh,
AL out there. And they decided to wait. Eric was like, completely understand, your personal lives. I think like Simon talked about this in the interview with Kevin, or alluded to it at least.
mhm.
And he said like that's something we're willing to do as a company. Like if artists can meet the deadline, for like a important reason, that's something we're willing to accommodate and deal with it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like so like that's like pretty interesting because like I think like and I'm not like I don't know for sure if this like how much of it the magnitude of impact, but it's my opinion that their initial plan was probably to release at Gen Con. I really think that that was their goal for last year because it just didn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you have your biggest release? Like, Europe, people in Europe are awesome. Like, we're friends with them in the Discords. We've met a lot of them in Sorcery Con. They're amazing people, but it's a tiny market
at the
relative to
moment.
like
Yeah,
Sorcery in whole is very small. And
yeah,
then like you got US like this. Oh, let me put it in front of my camera. US is like this. Europe, if US is this, Europe is like this, right?
yeah.
So it's like a tiny, almost like I don't want to call it a niche because there's enough people that it's like got some traction, but and a lot of people came out and spiel. You could see like there at the event and at the game store, but obviously the core market is the US without question.
Yeah.
So Gen Con is the ideal target release. I think they missed that. So that's why they did a worldwide release from Spiel. And then next year, I mean, and the history is Gen Con. That's where Magic blew up. That's where you get all the US like hardcore TCG gamers, hardcore art lovers, everybody, all the demographics that you need to hit. Max exposure.
Yeah.
So at least they had a presence there last year, but to coincide with a new release, that just brings a whole new energy.
Yeah.
I think actually they did like a or
They did the
no they,
previews. They did
yeah
like
they
the
did some previews there,
previews.
right?
You know,
I was gonna say
they
that.
had a box. They previewed numerous cards. You know, but there wasn't product available to do, you know, sealed events or something like that.
Yeah,
You know, that's what
yeah.
I would
So
like to see.
yeah, I gotta commend them for making the most of a suboptimal situation by having the box there to showcase. That was a
Oh
great
yeah.
reveal. Several cards. I mean, it was super exciting, and I
Yeah,
think
no. Gen Con last year was basically a miracle in my
you
opinion.
were
For them
there.
to,
That's right. I forgot
yeah,
about
to
that.
pull that off, to do what they did with the limit, you know, just the Simon, Chase, and Drew, that was it. You know,
Yeah,
you had Ira running the event side, but I mean, to get that booth there, to deal with the traffic, you know, Gen Con's 70,000 people. And even though their booth location was kind of in the far back corner of the vendor hall, they still got a lot of traffic. So
yeah,
you know what they were able to do, I think, was incredible. And I know they're getting a booth. They said they're getting a booth next year, but I don't remember
okay,
if they said if it's bigger. But they are going to
okay,
be there, so that's good. They're going to have
yeah.
a booth in the vendor hall. Hopefully, it's larger, maybe a bit more substantial. You know, double what they had this past year, and you know, maybe they can have two artists there, or you know, maybe if we're really lucky, it's set three. That would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah, you reminded me. Like, so we're talking about a convention. I gotta pump something. That's what I do on the channel.
Oh
People are just busting
yeah,
my chops
you
for
gotta
that.
pump
Not,
those things. I know. You get
it's
those
not a,
little plates out.
it's not a pump, but because like this isn't something I'm profiting off of. But like the event, like so, let me just like tell people to do an event in like Las Vegas is like absurdly expensive, like insane. Like to reserve just to reserve the venue, and then they nickel and dime you for every little thing. So there's like an absurd like food minimum you got to spend, and that, like we had the box lunches, and we could have charged people more, like the ticket price, and then hey, if you want lunch included, it's this amount. Just included all that, right? We tried to add value and incentive for people to come out. So we really leaned forward financially on this event and took a lot of risk. So we overprinted like, and we had to guesstimate like because there's always like people to just show up, like don't pre-order tickets. They show up to the event or they do it at last minute, and we had to like put all this stuff in production. So I'm talking about like these badges we did, right? And there was like a badge for each one. We had like the King Arthur for the people that attended. The glare's terrible. We got King Arthur, Guinevere, and Lance. They're card sizes, and they were on lanyards, but they're the same size. And on the back, there's the Holy Grail. So we had like enough King Arthurs for the attendees. There was like 50 and change left over, maybe 60 some, and then like a few hundred actually of the Guinevere and Sir Lancelot. So I'm helping to facilitate like the sale of the remaining amount of those if people are interested. And there was a lot of interest. I did it through my Patreon because I don't have like a e-commerce website. Like my collectorarthouse.com is a content oriented
Yeah,
website. I don't have like an e-commerce built in for that. So
yeah.
if you go, like, you got to go to my Patreon, but you don't have to be in the paid tier. I just wanted to let people know. You sign up as a free member so you can see the post, and that's like my little carrot to say like, help me do this in an orderly way. You find the post, you comment in the post what you want. You say I want Guinevere and Lancelot, right? And then I say yes, confirmed, while supplies last, and then I mail them out to people, and that's going to help cover some of our expense for the event. So I just wanted to like put that out there for people. The other thing about that is like we did a survey after Sorcery Con because we really want to get people's feedback on what was good, what was bad, what could be done better, and where do you want to go next year? Like this is going to be an annual thing. Like what's the best venue to do this? And everyone has a different perspective. Maybe we go somewhere cheaper than Vegas, but then you don't have the draw of like a really fun, amazing city. So people are saying like Reno is like a good alternative where you still have that gambling type vibe for people that are into that, good restaurants and all that, but it's a lot more affordable than Vegas. Or like I floated the cruise ship idea just kind of as like a jokey meme, but like half serious. I'm like, dude, that'd be pretty sick. Just
I'm
hanging
still
out.
pushing for Indy. I think
Yeah,
it'd be great
Indy.
to have it in Indy, but you know
Yeah,
that's
but
just
what
me.
got me thinking about all this is your point that you went to Gen Con and Sorcery Con. How do you think like the two experiences contrast from like a sorcery fan going to a convention that has sorcery plus a million other games and things going on versus like an all sorcery all the time sorcery con type event?
I think that Gen Con is something that if a person has never experienced, they're not going to spend a lot of time with sorcery.
Okay.
Gen Con is just it's too much. I mean, I've been going every year now for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so I know where to go to look at the things I want to look at and that type of thing. But if you're a first timer or even a second timer, there's just so much to do. And I think most of us play more than one game.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to focus on sorcery when you're at Gen Con.
Okay.
Certainly you could dedicate a day to it, but dedicating multiple days is very difficult. So, I mean, I thought Sorcery Con was great because I only had to worry about sorcery. Now, this past Gen Con, all I had to worry about was sorcery because I worked the tournaments with Ira. So,
Hmm.
so mostly it was sorcery for me as well. But I did enjoy that I knew a lot of the people at Sorcery Con. Gen Con,
Yeah.
70,000 people. And granted, I've been going there a lot of years, so I do know some people, but it's still 70,000 people.
Yeah.
So it is a nice experience to have that smaller community event. And it's really enjoyable just to focus on the one game with no other distractions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like I was wondering from my own perspective because I'm only into sorcery and I like art generally speaking. I know like a lot of
Yeah.
artists go for different games
Yes,
and stuff, so
they
I
do.
like that aspect of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really care to go discover other new up and coming games or even established games. I'm just not interested. So so
Yeah.
I think like that's why I lean towards like Sorcery Spring Social in Baltimore and then Vegas, like probably my two events each year. Then
Yeah.
kind of maybe dabble in others. If like maybe GaryCon if they went there
Yeah.
just to see
Yeah.
all the TSR artists. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they do have a pretty significant number of artists that show up there, but even even if you took the time to hang out at the sorcery booth and talk to all the artists, you're gonna probably, if that's all you're doing, you're gonna run out of things to do if you're gonna stay there all 4 days. Now, if you're
Yeah.
willing to, spread your rings a little, Mike, and learn some other games.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I only got so much time in my
Yeah,
life here.
yeah. I know. But hey, I mean, there's lots of great things at Gen Con that aren't
Yeah.
even necessarily game oriented. They have the cosplay contest, they have the painting contests that are pretty neat. You might actually enjoy the miniature painting contests. I
Hmm.
mean, it is a similar medium. A lot of those folks, the very best, do a lot of freehand. I've seen a lot of beautiful models at Gen Con, so that might be
Yeah.
something actually that you would enjoy too.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. What other like hot topics did we miss? Anything else? You
I
did a
don't
thing
think
on
so.
store kits. What are we talking about store kits lately?
Yeah. I mean, I think the store kits. They're clearly designed for limited events because they got those draft kits in them. I feel like
Yeah.
they didn't put enough promos in there. Just having the 4 promos feels a little short, but certainly it is going to make them. That definitely plays to the collectible side of
Yeah.
sorcery because there
Okay.
are not going to be a whole lot of those running around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't catch like all the details of there was like well some of those promos that they announced like the cat concepts that Severn did. I guess that
Yeah,
well that's going to be incentive based
yeah.
somehow.
I
I don't know.
think it sounded almost like a lot of those cat ones may be tied partially to those introductory store kits in a way.
Okay,
So,
introductory circuits, yeah.
the introductory store kit will potentially, I won't say probably, potentially get
Yeah.
a lot of those cat promos.
Hmm.
But hopefully there's other ways to get them because like stores that already have a presence, they're going to want to be able to get those too and not
Yeah.
necessarily get that whole introductory kit.
Yeah, I love that was it the Apprentice Wizard one? The one with the lightning bolt sparks, the cats
Yeah,
holding the
yeah,
lightning
yeah, yeah,
bolts.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's so great, man.
yeah, yeah.
Severin's so excited about those. I think like so, I help her sell her artist proofs. I think she's gonna do like a whole cat series of her
Oh
artist
wow.
proofs. And I
Okay.
think she might be doing it for her first Arthurian Legends set of cards, I wanna say. So I'm
Yeah.
super curious to see like what kind of concept I mean she sends me these little notebooks when she sends me stuff sometimes. There's like all these different cat concepts. It's like
Yeah.
really, really like awesome stuff.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. But
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to all the new Dust Awards, but
yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see where the pricing lands on those in terms of the dust, because there were quite a few. And I just don't know, like for example, that King Arthur. How many people are going to want that? Because King Arthur right now doesn't seem like it's going to be a highly playable card unless
Hmm.
something changes. So it's not like Color Out of Space, right? Everybody wanted Color Out of Space because Color Out of Space sees a lot of play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that is interesting.
yeah, so
And
it
then
makes
like
you wonder.
also there's this whole thing about open just a couple boxes, go by singles. So do people really have the extent of dust that they had for beta? People opened a lot of beta, I feel, and I
Oh,
don't
they
know that
do.
they're opening Arthurian Legends on the same level.
No,
So that's an
no, I don't
interesting
think that
dynamic
the
too.
average player is not. Which is why, I mean, the dust program. You're not supposed to be getting your dust from boxes, though. You're supposed to be getting your dust from play.
Yeah,
That's what that's
right.
designed for. So go play.
That is the I think that is the most useful and powerful metric that sorcery tracks.
Yes.
I think box, and I don't know. So there is a distinction that's traceable, right? You can track. Can you track? You'd have to be able to
Yeah.
track box
Yeah. You
dust
get
codes
like
versus.
participation awards and tournament awards. Yes.
But you can segregate that from the play earned dust,
Yeah,
right?
because it literally loads on your screen with each different one. Yeah.
Okay,
So
because
yeah.
that is a great mechanism for for people to understand who's actually playing the game. I
Yes.
think like the ones you earn through the box, I think that can be very misleading, and there's no meaning in that because
Yeah.
you can't trace it to the root source of who purchased it where. It gets
You can't even
resold.
trace it to the root source of who opened it. I mean,
Yeah,
you got
I
people
mean,
selling dust left and right.
yeah, I'm thinking like I mean, would it even be meaningful if it was serialized in a way that you could track it regionally? Because I imagine maybe based on the number they could do that. I don't know if people have investigated that to figure out if that's doable. But like, what would that? Trying to think through like what would that data tell you? Because if it got sent to Singapore,
Yeah.
resold to the U.S., is there any meaning in that they flipped like 1,000 boxes and then I guess you could say somehow someone acquired the code from an account in the U.S
Yeah.
but from an overseas box, does that really tell you anything? I mean, I don't know.
I don't. I mean, that I guess that could tell them that, hey, why is all the product from Singapore ended up in the U.S. That would
Yeah,
be the only thing that
there's
might
some
tell
value
them.
in that, right? Yeah, that they're
Yeah.
sending
Yeah.
too much to certain markets. That's how you figure out
Yeah.
which are the truly underserved markets, like that there's no absorption in that market potentially, or not as much as you thought at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess there's some value in that. But yeah, as it gets resold, it just gets more and more diluted, I guess. If it's traceable to region, though, I think there you can glean some value there. I think that's interesting. But the Play Network, I really like that. I don't know if they had some they reported like how many cards they printed, which was kind of a strange metric I thought in
Yeah.
the presentation.
Yeah.
Because people
Yeah.
like it's like all right, great, yeah, like it seems like all that was absorbed. I guess that's good. Like you're selling a lot of product.
Yeah.
But yeah, the collectors are like all cynical, like, oh Jesus Christ, 12 million cards, like like it was
Yeah.
funny the way some people are like, oh yeah, that's awesome, and other people are like, what? It's like cringy as hell, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But like there was I don't know, was there a play network metric? I think it
Yeah.
might
They
have
did
been.
they did the map with all the stores. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So they did the map with all the stores. That was another big thing that they showed.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, but the number of people signed up for Play Network, I thought that was a metric as well, and that's
Yeah. I think it
interesting
was. Yeah.
because that tells you, yeah, who's playing. That's
Hmm.
good. I
Yeah.
wonder if that's. I
And I
wish
mean, they
they.
should be able to see every event the person plays in. They should be able to drill down to get that data. Now, I don't know
Yeah,
if that's worthwhile or viable, but you know, that could be. You could definitely see where your hubs of play are.
yeah. Hire a data analyst. I mean, I don't know. Labor is not cheap. People are
No.
highly compensated in the
Yeah.
post-COVID era. So.
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's a nice sentiment from Matt. He said, never in his 34 years in game art has he experienced such warm, welcoming community as experienced in Sorcery Con Vegas. Oh, nice. Sorcery players love art in spite of card playability. Yeah. You know what? Like, the way that proved true, like, I wasn't sure. Like, when I started doing, like, altars, not
Hmm.
to pump my own stuff. People are going to be like, oh, there's Mike's talking about selling shit again. But, like, when I, like, auctioned I went from artist proofs, original paintings, to also altars. I wasn't sure, like, how people would value that.
Hmm.
But there is like some of these altars like sell for more than artist proofs. And like artists, I mean, every work of art on a card is a truly unique one of one. So there is intrinsic value in that. But typically, I was impressed by the maturity of the TCG market and appreciation for art on that level, because a lot of people, I mean, there's like some faction of people to just say like, I like the artist proofs because there's only 25 of them. It's like more of a scarcity thing and power level of the card thing than the art that's on the card. But when you do an altar, you completely remove that. And you say, like, this is either a card I'm going to play with because I like the new art that's on it, or I just love the art that's on it, period. And I'm willing to pay the artist, like, a good sum of money for that. So that's where it really proved out, and I was really impressed to see there's really true art appreciation in Sorcery, and to see it bleed over is awesome.
And not just that, but it's art appreciation for artists that aren't even in Sorcery yet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it's like Atlas and Justin, and, you know, they don't even have cards in this game.
Yeah. I think thanks Alan too for the nice compliment there. I think like Dustin was at SorceryCon, man, and he sold like 12 paintings there. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, no,
people love his stuff. Yeah. I mean, he priced it very fairly. I mean, when you look at it, like his pricing relative to Sorcery original art, there's going to be a delta there because it has the game premium. The people the consumer that's going to SorceryCon, they want Sorcery originals. But like the fact that he sold so many and for like a pretty strong valuation still is great, that people really love his art. And then like he had a good conversation with Eric. So I'm hoping, like, my dream is like the whole idea is to showcase these artists' artwork across these platforms and communities I build to give them opportunity and, like, you know, grow their awareness for their brand, for their work. And if they get into Sorcery, that's like the ultimate dream. That'd be amazing. But nevertheless, it helps them, and fans seem to enjoy it. So it's pretty fun. I think it fills the void too, honestly, man. Because like for us art enthusiasts, when you have to wait a whole year and see nothing new, it's painful. So I love artist proofs, like, because we love the Sorcery artists and we get to see their work. And then we also are discovering, much in the way we discover new artists through formal, like official Sorcery, through these altarists, we discover other great talent on the medium that we love, the Sorcery cards. So it's really like a win-win. But anyway, let's stop pumping stuff. What else? Anything else you want to cover? It's getting late. I know it's a school night. You got a job to do.
Yeah, I gotta go up and work for the American public tomorrow. Can't wait. So.
Yeah, good chat, man. Like I say, like Lord of Itza is your YouTube channel. I linked it in the comments, so everybody go check out. I linked the channel itself and not the specific video we talked about, because you just want to go to the channel and watch like the last few videos. You'll see it's great content. You always hit like the right topics. It's not just like straight news reporting. It's like, here's my take on it. You analyze it. It's not always like rainbows and unicorns. But it's not also like, hey, look at these jerk offs messing everything up either. It's very very fair, and it's just good points. Like critical thinking, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that.
I try, but you know, I apparently I do lean negative, and that's, you know, that is what it is. So
there's just some people that are like deeply invested and just want to be like, they're just positive mind. God bless them. You know, I wish I could be that positive all the time, but I got my demons too, man. And like, I don't know. I just wanted to succeed and do great. But it's good stuff. People go check it out. Like and subscribe this video. Check out Lord of Itza's video. The channel's growing fast and getting a lot more views. You can see the uptick. Now you got artists commenting on the Facebook page, on the got
Eric to comment. That one today was like, what?
1,000 boxes per thumbs up. So go give it a thumbs up in the Sorcery community group and on the Lord of Itza YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely. If you're this is beta's a player set, go thumbs the thing up, because Eric's already said 1,000 more boxes. So yeah,
man. All right. Well, thanks for being on. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. We had like 60 to 70 people the whole time, so that's pretty awesome. You're a good draw, man. We'll do it again.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Take care, man. Have a good night. See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Later.